Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. We are your hosts. My name is Saad.
And I'm Darris.
Today's podcast, I've been dealing with this dilemma myself for a little while when I was in the consulting world, and it just kind of like is starting to become apparent again in kind of our lives right now. And it's just being perpetually busy, but never getting anything done. You think you're getting stuff done, but you're in the grand scheme of things, you're still moving so slow that things start aging you out quickly.
It
And
sounds like you're talking about the productivity myth.
well, tell me more about that, Darius, because I keep finding myself in the same loophole as many of our viewers probably are, and many business owners that are in this space, constantly doing, busy work and having stacked days,
Right.
but their
Where you
business is not
feel that you're
growing.
getting a lot done,
Yeah.
but then when you look back, you're like, oh, well, I'm not really getting the most important things done, or I don't feel like I'm
Yeah.
getting the most important things. So I feel like I'm continually, like just
Yeah.
operating a high level, but that never seems to amount to real forward momentum.
Yeah.
Is that a really
Yeah, exactly.
okay?
And I'm sure you've probably heard this several times where people are like, "Hey, Darius, like
Listen,
I was busy all day. I don't know. I still feel like I didn't get anything done at all." It's
every
'cause you
every
didn't.
every business owner / person I think I've ever talked to, including myself, yourself, we all go through this. And the thing is that's a common trap to get caught up in, is the trap of busyness, especially when we're in business, that we, like, oh, I had all these meetings and I did all these things, and I don't really remember what I did, but I know I did a lot.
Mhm.
Right. I had all these meetings, we moved all these things forward, and then I answered all these emails. And at the end of the day, what you haven't done is actually move the business forward. You've just put out fires for another day. We run from fire day to fire day, just putting out fires, put out fires. And
Yeah.
as a result, the business doesn't grow like we had always dreamed it would.
Mhm.
Right. It doesn't just magically take off. And that is really the heart of, I think, today's topic. Is we're going to talk about the myth of productivity. And not so much the myth, it's really the misconception around productivity, and how we've always defined productivity, and how, when you're a business owner, you need to have a much more clearly defined clear definition of productivity and what it means, which then I think will help guide you. I know it does for me, and that's as we continue to progress. These are the things that they just become more and more clear as we document kind of the things we go through,
Mhm.
to again help other people kind of wade their way through and say, oh, okay, I that resonates with me. I feel that's the same thing I go through. Okay, what are some great things we can do around that?
Mhm.
So the first
Yeah.
thing is, like, the common definition of productivity is really around the amount of output relative to input. Like that's the very simple thing. Now, the problem with that is, so you can talk about, hey, I'm really productive. That is great.
Mhm.
But at what? So you can be really productive and be focused on the wrong things. You're still productive, but you're not going in the right direction.
Fair.
And the idea is, you want to be productive. You want a high level of productivity in the right things. Is that you don't want to major in the minors,
Mhm.
right? So you
Yeah.
don't want to spend a whole lot of time and energy on the things that don't actually matter. And that's a hard thing for business owners and most people to do, because we have this, oh, well, we've been conditioned, we've learned we've been rewarded from the school systems and just in general, right? From
For doing little tasks.
jobs,
Yeah.
that, doing a lot of work is so good because you're very productive. You're being rewarded for productive. You get a lot of things done. Is it the right thing? And that is really the topic for today, because at the very base level, so for all of us, the great equalizers, we all have the same input, and that is, at the very base level, time. Like, we all have the same amount of time. We all have the standard measurement of time.
Mhm.
It's the people that get the most for their time are the ones that get the most money for their time. And they do that by doing activities that generate the most revenue per minute. So I know that's a lot.
Yeah. Break that down.
So So we're going to talk about time, because productivity is really always comes down to, like, let's just say at the very base level, like an hour, right?
Mhm.
So how much output do I get for every input or hours input of energy or
Mhm.
whatever it is?
Effort,
That's,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's usually how we measure productivity. And what we're saying is, yes, but we want, as a business owner, the ones that get the most for their time are the ones that get the most money for that hour.
Mhm.
So how do you do that? And that's the difference between business owners that never grow and the ones that grow very large, like Jeff Bezos or Alex Hormozy, or, let's say Apple with Steve Jobs, or, pick a name one.
Mhm.
Like, that's the difference. Like, we're actually all given the same amount of time. It's what we do in that time and what we focus and pay our attention to in that time is the most important thing. So the productivity myth is, or the lie that we get caught up in, is that the more I accomplish in an hour, the better it is.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's a fallacy. It's a thinking fallacy, because if we continue to believe that, then just by going through the list of things in a day and knocking them off our list, we feel accomplished. We get a dopamine hit. We feel
Mhm.
great. Wow, I feel so accomplished. And then, like you said, I look back at my day and like, oh, I'm still in the same place tomorrow.
Didn't really make progress.
I
Yeah.
live to fight another day,
Yeah.
and I may die tomorrow.
Yeah. And there's also people that further reinforce that, you know, ideology or mental like thought process where they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you only got one thing done in an hour? Like I got 20 different things done." But in the grand scheme of things, if you look at it, the one thing got the business owner much further along versus,
Yeah.
doing the minor little things and getting the little dopamine off of those little tasks.
Yeah, and it feels good,
Yeah.
right? Because we love dopamine. We
Yeah.
are a society saturated with dopamine,
Hmm.
inducing activities, and so, yeah, it feels good. So we're always wanting to hit that, and we very rarely do the hard work of delaying that,
Hmm.
which becomes it's a much deeper discussion. But like, that is when we refuse to do the hard things and put off that gratification. So we delay the gratification,
Hmm.
then we will always look for a way to hit that dopamine up, like, consistently.
Yeah.
So let's start with maybe a better definition of productivity. So in business, it's we want to look at how much money we're getting out for how much time we put in.
Hmm.
So when you look at the activities you're involved in, is how much money or revenue am I getting out of that time that I put in? And if it's not, then it's probably not the best use of your time. And so there will be, I think we'll go into it in a little bit, but like, and the reason we talk about that is, if you have the goal and the dream of becoming wealthy, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, then you have to do things differently than you've done before. And you have to shift your mindset a little bit, because the reason the rich are rich is because they buy time, and poor people buy stuff.
Hmm.
That's a big difference. So rich people, the reason successful and wealthy business owners get more and more wealthy is because they learn how to get better at buying more time and being able to produce more in that time, because poor people focus on accumulating things.
Yeah.
And I look at that, I'm like, oh yeah, like, that's been my mindset for a long time, is, I like this thing. And I get that. Why? Because it gives us, we just talked about that. It's that immediate dopamine hit.
Hmm.
The rich, the wealthy are better at prolonging gratification. Like, when they get that gratification, it's not instant for them. They're okay with it taking longer and longer and longer. The best part of that is, that's not a fixed point.
Hmm.
Like, just because up to this point of your life, you have not been able to delay gratification, doesn't mean you can't learn to, right? And depending on your age, I mean, okay, so maybe you didn't start this in your 20s or 30s. Maybe you're starting in your 40s or 50s, but that's okay. You just may not achieve the same results you would have had given it yourself, 10, 15, 20 years. That's okay. But it doesn't give you a reason to not make that shift and learn how to delay that gratification. So then the other part of that is, so when the rich buy time, the poor buy stuff, it's the ambitious people buy skills. They learn how to create more, right? They get more productive by leveraging more and more skills. And they learn how to buy time by getting those skills, by buying those skills. Whereas lazy people buy distractions, right? And they buy into distraction. So which means that they're more apt to either buy things that keep them distracted or engage in activities that allow them to be distracted from the real life, because most lazy people are unwilling to take a really hard look at themselves and say, this is where I am. I am now ready to make a change, or I'm going to do something different. And they do not want to do the hard work of what's required to go out there. So they will continue to distract themselves and buy into distraction. And that's the difference. So ambitious people, the ones that really start to go, are the ones that learn how to skill upgrade. They're going to invest their time and money and energy into achieving those skills, and they're going to learn how to buy time more effectively. And that's really, like, that's why the successful people become more and more successful, is because they're learning how to extract as much money out of every minute and every hour. Whereas lazy and unambitious people are giving their money away per hour just to stay distracted and not have to stretch themselves beyond where they want to go.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. It's a very deep point, actually, too.
I think as we continue to go through these, and, like, we're just consuming everything we possibly can. And it's these kind of frameworks that help, I think, distill a lot of knowledge into a really easy framework to look at. And it's an easy mirror to look at yourself. And when I look at that and say, okay, if my goal is to be wealthy, to create a lot of wealth so that I can achieve my real high goals, then I have to be able to look at the mirror and be real with myself and say, okay, yes, am I guilty of these things? Yes, absolutely. Do I still catch myself doom scrolling and wasting time on Instagram? Yes. Okay. Now, but knowing what I know now, can I ask myself, is this moving this towards me being able to extract more and more revenue and buy more time back? No? Okay. I should probably not do that. Or I have to now set up a way that I can, okay, what is the one thing I need to focus on? Okay. And when I do that, can I reward myself with that? Okay. That is a very small way I can start to unwind a life of instant gratification and start to, instead of making this huge jump, right, which is, again, causes so many people issues in a lot of different areas of their lives. Like they want to start they want to lose weight. So what do? I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm going to eat clean, whatever it is. And that lasts all of about a week, because you set the expectation gap is so far, and you haven't just learned how to start layering in better behaviors and better habits. So we're taking it from atomic habits level, right? So we're just starting with small changes. So learning to layer in, okay, cool. Oh yeah, I can now focus on this task. I'm going to give myself 90 minutes. I'm going to focus on this task. I'm going to get that done because that will move me forward to extract more revenue per minute, per hour. And then I'll reward myself with this thing. And then I can start to shift that delayed gratification a little bit and start to then push the boundaries on that.
Yeah. And I mean, so when you say all this stuff, like, it reminds me of like the way I grew up, and I'm sure like this is exactly how you grew up as well. Is when you do something good, you get rewarded for it. It's like we live in a world now where if anybody just does like mediocre, they get rewarded for it.
Or we reward them before they even do it.
Exactly, yeah. This is what you'll get if you do this.
Yes.
And like, here, this is yours.
Here.
Now go do it. And most people will just half-ass it because they know they don't have to try as hard as they would have if all of that effort depended on, how well they do and what the final result is going to be. Like, say it's $100. If you put in 30% effort, you get $30. everybody's going to put in 100% effort to get the
You
$100,
would like to
right?
believe.
Yeah, you'd like to believe, right? So, but no, it just kind of reminds me of my childhood, and that's how I grew up. And I find that it's it's one of those, it goes hand in hand with the we talk about like the lost art of not being able to control your attention anymore.
Yeah.
And it goes hand in hand with that for me, where if you understand what it is that you're working towards, you very easily can, put your hands up for the moment and not get the instant gratification.
Yeah.
So,
It's all about that I think you've described probably most of our childhoods, right? And guess what? Even there's probably some of us that grew up where we were told, okay, you're going to do chores and then you're going to get your allowance after the fact, right? So
mhm,
from an early age, we probably did learn how to delay some gratification, but
mhm,
then over time, like most things, right? Like being a business owner, like,
yeah,
things start to add up. They just add on and they creep in. And if we're not really aware of what's going on, then they just kind of take place. We have new habits that form.
mhm,
We now also live in a society that is really heavy on instant gratification, right? We post a video, we want to see someone liked it right away.
mhm.
Oh my, and otherwise it's not valuable. I'm like, well, if we were doing this for the instant likes,
Yeah.
we would have checked out a long time ago.
Yeah, episode 10. All
Yeah,
right,
yeah, I'm out.
It's not working.
Yeah, after all the initial support kind of dies off
Yeah.
and you see who's sticking around, you're like, oh, this is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
Good
this,
point.
this is a really great process of having this forum, this platform, this podcast is a great lesson to really understand what delayed gratification is, right? Because there isn't a whole lot of gratification that comes out of it,
Mhm.
right? It is the constant slog of trying to, again, create content that is meaningful, it's valuable, that helps people. And sometimes that isn't appreciated, but it's also then developing multiple skill sets in us as well. So it does help us to relearn the skill of delayed gratification, right? That
Mhm.
we can then deploy in other areas. It's also the great thing about the 1 month day is that until you go through it, you don't really realize what you're capable of. And then you start to hear more where you can start to chain like multiple days of those together. And you're like, there's levels to this game
Mhm.
that you're just not even aware of at this point,
Exactly.
because right now, for those of you listening, you're probably just trying to get through a day
Mhm.
without wanting to pull your hair out, without wanting to strangle one of the people that works for you because they did something so ridiculously stupid.
Mhm.
And you have to show up in a way that you maintain composure and that you are leading from a level 5 leadership area. Like you have to activate yourself beyond what you currently think you're capable of, because on the inside you want to cry or you
Mhm.
want to throw in the towel and you just want to walk away. You want to throw your hands up, like, to say who haven't been there. I mean, we can say that because I've been there, and where you just want to give up. So the idea is, again, so we'll bring it back, is the part of the reason is that we are caught up in the myth of productivity and what it is actually to be busy versus you don't know what busy is, and nor do you know what busy on the right things actually means.
Mhm.
And that's okay, because this is just like the continuum of the game. This is like the awareness level. So in the beginning, we choose to go into business because we have as Michael Gerber calls it, the entrepreneurial seizure. We have this great idea. We're struck by lightning, like, oh, I'm going to become a business owner, become an entrepreneur. It sounds amazing. I'm going to have so much freedom. And then you realize that as you open a business, I talk to a lot of clients and they're frustrated. And they're frustrated because it's like, all I ever seem to do is deal with problems. Like, yeah, because you're the business owner.
Yeah.
And then get used to this life is because you just start, like, all of the problems roll up to you.
Mhm.
And as you grow, you're just solving bigger and bigger problems that have far greater upside.
Mhm.
That's it. And as the owner, like, yeah, the good, you get rewarded in other ways, but you
Yeah.
are continually, it's all about solving challenges and solving problems. So
Yeah.
it can get very emotionally draining. And so we need to help you understand where you are in this process and that it is a process. And if you start to compare yourself to someone like Alex Hormozy, right? You're looking at the Alex Hormozy now that can take the first 100 days of his year and say, look, I work every day, 16 hours a day, and I'm just focused, and there's nothing on my calendar other than a couple things that I have to do, and that's it. And we look at that and we then say, well, that's what I should be doing. Okay, but he also has a, company in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Their portfolio is huge. They're on track to do $1 billion. Like it's a very different animal. And where you're forgetting is, where were you at that stage? Like, where was he at that stage? Because when he started out, he may have worked 16-hour days, but it wasn't, he wasn't in what we call in the maker mode, right? In a maker schedule, which is a very different thing than, because where he was then, it was, Tim Ferriss calls it, you have your manager schedule and your maker schedule. And a lot of different, business people have adopted that. And the first time I heard it was Tim Ferriss. And because at the manager level, the manager schedule is like, we think about time very differently. We think about it in small, like 15, 30-minute chunks, right? Like, we set 30-minute meetings.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
30-minute meetings, 30-minute, 1 hour. So our time chunks for the day are very small. And then as we load those chunks up during the day, it's like, oh, the measure of a good day is how much of that day did I have scheduled to do things?
Yeah.
Right? And probably that might resonate
Yeah,
with you.
honestly, like, so it reminds me, and I'm sure like you had this in your consulting time as well. So a lot of times, well, I'll give an example of like this specific year. I had 3 clients that I was working with, and all day long, just meeting after meeting, and then you switch and you go to another client, and then you're doing meeting after meeting, and then you switch and you go to another client, and after all that's said and done, your day is done. And you feel like, oh, you know what? I was busy all day. But if you take a step back and you look at it, all you see is that you just had meetings all day long and nothing really got done. You never had the time to sit there and be in the creator mode where you're thinking about, all right, well, what do these clients technically need, instead of just patching up every little hole that they have and then moving on.
Exactly.
And I was doing that for like day after day after day, month after month, and it's just it becomes one of those things where you're just in that cycle and you can't break free from it.
Yeah.
Because that's what your clients need.
Yeah.
Instead of understanding what your clients want.
It's what they want. It's not what they need.
Yes. Sorry, the other way around. Yeah.
But I get it. Like, because what they're saying to you is they're reinforcing, I need this, I need this, I need this. So then we start to take that on as, oh, they need this, because that's the message we're constantly bombarded with like all day long. I need this, I need this, I need this. And so we start to associate that it's a need. Mm-hmm. And because we don't have any mechanism to just put a kind of a wedge in there and say, oh, hold on, like pump the brakes.
Yeah.
And take a rational thought moment.
Yeah.
It's very hard then to say, oh no, these are actually things that you think you need, which is a want. You have a desire for this, but we actually need to dive into what is actually the root cause of this that is causing you to feel that way. And what is that unmet need? Because it's manifesting. So it's basically showing up in all these different ways, but that's not the real thing. Those are just symptoms, right? We need to go down, but you don't even have, because you're constantly in the response mode, you're caught up in the productivity trap and you're always busy. You're like, oh yeah. Like, and as in the consulting world, it's all about hours billed. Yeah. Like, yeah, we're doing great because we're billing a lot of hours to these projects. It's great. Yeah. However, like, we could be missing out on a much greater opportunity because there's actually a much bigger, better solution, or a much more worthwhile solution, or one that maybe in this terms, this project is not as big, but then leads to other big ones. But because we're so caught up in that cycle and that trap, we're not ever able to have that time to go and do that. And that's when that maker schedule is important. And it's important because we think we don't have time for it. It's most often because we don't
make time for it?
We don't make time for it because we don't understand the value of it.
Yeah.
Because the truth is we make time for things that are important to us,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So the things that are important to us, we make time for.
Yeah.
And then we fill up the other time with all the other things that are seemingly important. But when things are really important, like it's a really prioritization. And we just don't know, maybe we don't know enough around what that is and why it's so valuable, which is the whole point of this episode, is really that when you're looking at your activities during the day, is do these activities help me extract the most revenue per minute or per hour? If not, okay, well then there's, depending where you are in the spectrum, obviously, because if you're starting out and you're a one-man show,
Mhm.
okay, well that's like you're wearing all the hats. You are the manager, you're the maker, you're
Yeah.
the like
Do it all.
you're
Yeah.
you're everything, right? And you're the doer, right?
Yeah.
So you're the technician, you're the manager, you're the entrepreneur, and you have to manage all of those. So you have to do the thing,
Mhm.
you have to manage the thing, and you have to also find time to create more of the thing.
Mhm.
And so that compared to, let's go to the other side of the spectrum where you are Alex Hormozy, right? Where you have created a lot of leverage. And this you'll see is a very common thread, is that how you do that is through leverage. Well, Alex has created a lot of leverage. So he has content, code, labor, and capital all working for him. So basically the four horsemen of leverage working for him, that allows him, that he can for 100 days straight work, but he's also developed the skill of knowing how to work hard and how to work on the right things and to work in a state of flow that's going to help him outpace most people. So, and that's not a either or, that is a continuum, right?
Mhm.
You can move along that continuum and you can slide back down that continuum, right? So it's like you start off where you're doing all the things. The trick is we get so caught up in doing the busy work, that manager schedule where it's chunked down, where we're measuring in like 15, 30, 1 hour increments, that we can't even fathom. We can't even like, oh my God,
Mhm.
there's no way I could block out 90 minutes straight, let alone 3 hours, let alone 16 hours.
Mhm.
Like you're talking about, wait, 1 day of 16 hours? Like, I can't even believe that. Well, it's because you're so caught up in thinking that all of this stuff is busy, but it's not actually moving you to where you need to go because you don't see the value in it,
Mhm.
or you don't know how to do it,
Yeah.
right? And that's where it's really important to say, okay, on the schedule, where are the areas I need to pull back? So what are the things that I can do to strip back the non-essential things? So can I buy back my time? Okay, so what are these things? So if on a daily or on a weekly basis, like, can I get meal preps done? Can I trade my money for meal prep to save me all the time and energy around even thinking about meals? Okay, that frees me up more. Cool. So I can take that from my schedule. I can reallocate that. Can I move some things around to, and then say, or can I take a day or even one morning of 1 day a week to then set aside to work on the things that create leverage, right? Because the only way you get to the point where you are extracting the most out of every hour is you're focusing on three things. You're focusing on more clients, right? Customers and clients. How do I get them to spend more? And how do I get them to do it more often? Like, those are the only three things that you have to worry about for the most part.
Yeah.
And then, like, if you focus on that, especially like continually through the stages, and you work at ways to help that happen more and more easy, and you get more for less energy and less money and less input, like, that's creating leverage. That's going to allow you to distract. And then it frees you up gives you cash flow. And so that allows us to leverage other people's skills to then they become the experts. They come in and they then, can find the other opportunities to save money or whatever, and
Mhm.
other things. So then it becomes a
A
a
growth. Yeah.
flywheel,
Yeah.
right? And it just becomes more and more and more because we're learning how to create leverage. And that's the whole key. Is the myth of productivity is that I'm going to stay busy, but are you staying busy on the right things? And the whole idea of this is, unless you're focused on clients, getting more clients, getting to spend more. Sorry, get more clients, getting to spend money, and then more money, and then more often. Like those are the things that, because the cash flow from that will help you. And of course, you can dive into each of those and like, okay, well, how do I do that? Right? Is it marketing? Is it, all those things? But really, the whole point of this is to help you gain awareness that you're probably spending a ton of time that is wasteful on a day-to-day basis. And until we learn how to find value in creating that time where we're focusing on higher leverage activities, then we will continue this cycle of busyness and not move the business. So just a couple last points. Really, it's, you get rich by investing your time better and creating leverage. Like that's the name of the game. The name of the game is leverage. There's a reason why wealthy families stay wealthy. They teach skills and they teach their children about leverage, which is why they're usually in high leverage professions, right? So whether it's real estate or things like that, there's a high amount of leverage because that leverage allows them to create more, right? Not, I'm going to spend 2 hours scrolling Instagram, which is dead time.
Hey, I'd argue that sometimes scrolling the right content can be good.
Yes. Okay. So if you are using it from a maker
Yeah.
perspective, so, okay, what am I learning to then, okay, I'm doing research versus a consumer of, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
But I'm going to guarantee you, most of us are
99%,
consumers, right, of
Yeah.
Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, right? We're consumers. And so we're on the doom scrolling end of getting caught in the rabbit hole because we cannot control our impulses.
I will say, like, I've made a habit of typically what I would do when I wasn't aware that I was giving my time away for nothing. I would scroll past anything that seemed like it was about to give me knowledge. And now I have a habit of, like, anytime I scroll past, I'm like, whoa, hold on. Like, let's see in this time that I'm wasting away, like, let's see what I might be able to learn and better myself in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who are listening, I guarantee you this was an absolute time killer for me, and it still pops up from time to time, much less so because I'm much less
More aware now about it. Yeah.
I have less of a tolerance for it and I'm more aware of it. So the got a minute meeting, hey, you got a minute? No, actually I don't.
Yeah.
I do not have a minute.
Yeah.
Is this an emergency? Is this something that you're just like, is this convenience for you that you just want to come and interrupt me and become one of the distractions in my day that's now going to cause me an extra 15 to 23 minutes of time to get back into focus and maybe get back into flow? Great. So it's like, no, you don't get my time. So there's other things that I'll do in the wake of that. Right. So like if you're coming to me, you're coming with your 131, right? Dan Martell. It's what is your issue? What are the 3 potential solutions? What's your recommendation? Right. So the onus is on you to, like, you're not just coming asking me for the answer to tell you what you should already know, because that's why you're here. It's what have you thought through? What are the potentials? And so it creates more friction to a got a minute. Right. And then removing as many needless meetings as possible and creating the space for people to have maker schedules, right? So where they can be in focused work, deep work. That's where you're going to get that. And getting out of the habit of lying to yourself and telling yourself you're so busy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one big takeaway for me. It's like constantly trying to get out of that habit. I mean, I can understand that sometimes, like, being in that cycle with your clients, you have to work through and figure out, like, all right, you know what, we can't constantly keep doing the same thing over and over again. We need to plan better. We need to do better.
Yeah.
But I totally get it.
Yeah, and sometimes that time exists out of peak hours, right?
Yeah.
So that's sometimes where, okay, guess I'm getting up at 4 a.m. And so from 4 to 6 a.m., like that's my 2 hour window to get into deep work, to do the things, because I know over time executing at that is going, and I'm focusing on that, creating leverage and being able to extract more out of it. That is, and some of you that might be, okay, well then maybe it's 8 to 10 at night, or maybe it's 4 to 6 a.m. and then 6 to 8 at night. And then you shut her down, get some sleep, and then you're up at it again. Because there's nothing like that might be just for a season. And because it's nice. Well, I'm so busy and I can just shut it down at 5 p.m. Okay, great. But if we had hard work for a season, like the benefit is that's not forever. Like there can be a season where it's, yes, we put in the time and energy. That's okay. Because most of us, to be fair, really don't know what it is to work extremely hard, right? We will, and we talked about this one. It was the whole quote around the second win, and we habitually don't even push back. It could be third, fourth, fifth, sixth win, but we habitually don't even push beyond that because it becomes uncomfortable, and we do not like to feel uncomfortable. Whereas we just sat in that comfort, kept pushing through. We are so much more capable than we truly believe, but because we have become weak, and we've again, I'm not saying that I'm not pointing my fingers. Oh, you're all fucking weak. It's, look, whatever has led us to this point, right? We as a society have become much more relaxed in a lot of things. We have a pretty fucking good life here, right? And so it's just like good is the enemy of great. So it is relearning how to endure and put ourselves into those things, because those are the most rewarding things. And we habitually do not put ourselves there. We pull back as soon as we hit some struggle. This is why most of us still get into flow, is because that struggle phase hits, and then we back off.
Yeah.
We hit the wall and then we stop because it's uncomfortable. And we have to become better at learning to push through and persevere, because everything is on the other side of that. It sounds cliche, but that's the truth. Like everything is on the other side of that. I have had some very physically demanding work in my lifetime. And I look back and I was like, wow, I have actually like endured like some pretty harsh conditions, and I forget about that. And so now where I'm like, I lie to myself, is like, oh, like, man, wow, that was tough. I put a lot of work in, right? Like a good solid 1 month day, and you've accomplished so much. You're like, oh yeah, like, whew, yeah, I definitely need my rest day tomorrow. I'm like, or guess what? Now it's the next level is going to be, no, I'm going to plan 2 back to back, because then I have 2 months done. Boom, just like that. I'm creating, and then I'll be able to then chain more of those together. And then as we create more and more leverage in the business, like that's just only going to get better. We'll be able to create more and more maker spaces available, because we'll have more leverage working for us, but also then in whatever form it is, content, code, capital, labor, like all those areas, we'll have people leverage to do skills. We'll have money working for us. We'll have code, so systems and things that do things for us, and content that continually leverages the message.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's a good one.
fire hose today. So in the past, we'll just kind of like go back quickly, sum it up, and then we'll close this out. In the past, or maybe currently, a lot of people define productivity as the amount of output relative to input, right? But in business, it's all about how much money we're getting out of the time that we put in by the hour. And so if we're focused on things that are just busy work and they're not creating more revenue per hour, then it's busy work. And we need to start then creating time for more leveraged work, to create the leverage to buy back our time, to again create more leverage to extract more money per hour from the business, so that we're able to do bigger and better things.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And with that, the most simple way to do that is, if you haven't registered for the Burnout to Breakthrough course and you want to reclaim a lot of that time and strip away all the things that are keeping you busy on a daily basis and preventing you from doing that, working on that work, then you need to click the link in the notes and register for free for the Burnout to Breakthrough Masterclass and allow the neuroscience to help you do that. So with that, we are BizMeds. I'm Darris.
My name's Saad.
And we are here to give you the minimum effective dose for your business. If you've been with us since the beginning, thank you so much. And if you just joined us, thank you so much. As to quote the great Andy Frisella, don't be a hoe, share the show. And just remember, you're one day away from the life you've always dreamed about. We will see you in the next show, but also cannot forget, Mom, thank you, love you. Saad's mom, thank you, love you. We'll see you in the next show.